In today's podcast, we are going to talk about how a side hustle can supercharge your way to financial independence. Welcome to the Fi Guys and Fi Friday Feedback. We're happy to have you here.
Awesome. I'm Dom. He's Chris. So let's get right into it. We talking about side hustles. We talked about side hustles on Monday. Great pod, by the way. If you haven't already checked it out, hate to rep it. Shameless promo. Go check out Monday's pod. But yeah, we're continuing our conversation and kind of recapping on Monday's conversation. So let's start off right with understanding multiple income streams, right? Let's get right into it.
Yeah, so let's get into why it's important to have multiple income streams. I think most people, they rely on just their job or their W-2 job in order to bring in the income. And like we talked about on last podcast, most Americans can't cover a $400 bill.
Nope.
So if something was to happen to that job, God forbid, they lost it for whatever reason, or they couldn't get to it, well, now they're really like stuck up a creek without a paddle because that's the only source of income. So we talked a little bit about how it's almost irresponsible to only have one source of income coming in. Now, of course, if you and your spouse are both working, those are two sets of income. But unfortunately, most people who are in that situation are still spending 100% of the money that's coming in, if not more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a wacky world we live in where one income isn't enough. You need multiple incomes. I remember, I don't remember, but from the history books, I remember, in 1950s, there'd be one, it'd usually be the man of the house making the money. The wife would be stay at home, couple kids, car, a year's salary, you could buy a house, right?
Yep.
Something crazy like that. And now we're talking about side hustles. We're talking about two jobs. It's a wacky world we live in. But
yeah, and I'm not saying it's fair. It's unfortunately it's the situation that we're in, and that you could even have a good paying job, like a good paying job making six figures, and it's usually still worth it to have a side hustle, if not only for the additional income, also for the additional joy that it brings and the ability to grow your skill set and put yourself out into the world as a product seller rather than a consumer.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, America is built on entrepreneurs. So, let's be one with the people. Right?
Yeah. Let's join that long line, right?
Absolutely.
Something we didn't talk about on Monday's pod that I wanted to bring up. Have you ever heard of revenge spending, Dom?
No, I've heard of it, but explain it to me.
Yeah. So revenge spending basically means that you felt like you should have spent money before, but you were wronged in some way, so that you're going to now basically revenge yourself and spend more money. So this is really, I mean, that's probably not the perfect definition. I'm sure if you Google it, there'll be a better definition of it. But what we've noticed after COVID, especially as like financial advisors and people who just study human behavior, is that a lot of people's trips, the things that they wanted to do was basically held up for how long? 2 years, maybe a year and a half, 2 years, where they couldn't do anything. So now just the way that the proverbial rubber band snaps back, I was held back from being able to do what I wanted for 2 years. So now I'm going to get all of it out while I can. And that's good. I mean, you should be able to live life, travel and whatnot, but it also creates an issue in that a lot of people are overspending on money that they didn't have.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when people got those COVID relief checks, right? They say the rich got richer because everybody went out and bought TVs. Everybody went out and bought cars. They just bought things. And unfortunately for America, that's one of the reasons why we're such a superpower is, well, because we buy a lot of crap. We buy from everything. We buy from everyone. It's a big part of our economy. And I'm not saying our economy is wrong for that. It's who we are, but you got to make room for some financial decisions, right?
Yeah.
And it's not coming from the top. So, we got to start on a person by person level, right?
Yeah. And the reason I bring that up, the revenge spending, is most people, what I would think is most people, they're if they have a W-2 job, hopefully that's enough money to be able to fund their lives. So if you create a successful side hustle that's bringing in extra money, well, now that revenge spending isn't hurting you as bad as it normally would, because that's extra money that you hopefully were not accounting for, that you can now use to put towards things that you love, put towards living your authentic life, whatever that might be, and your best life. I know last time we talked a lot about in the pod, the side hustle being able to be used for, saving and driving yourself to financial independence. but it doesn't need to be that. You can, the money you make from your side hustle can just be for living for today and having the best life that you possibly can today, and have your W-2 job cover your retirement.
Absolutely. No, it's almost like you're playing life on 2-player mode in a single player game, like for me, it's like, I'm not married, right? It's just me in the house. So I can only play on single player, right? I only can have one income, but it's like, oh, I got 2 incomes. It's like, well, the first income will go towards, my rent, electricity, bills, right? Things to keep me alive, insurance, all that fun stuff. But the secondary income can be fun. Like you said, I love that, going on trips. Or if you're a menace like Chris and I, just more into investments, more into investments, more investing in ourselves, and, getting closer to financial independence.
Yeah, 100%. And then, I mean, in addition to that, there's just so many other benefits to diversifying your income. I mean, imagine if, I think the best thing about financial independence, FI started from the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early. Yes. And you and I, we've kind of bucked that retire early part, because I don't think anyone should ever retire from working, retire from trying to add value to the world. Even if you're not making money off of it, financial independence is the way that you can do what you want to do. And having those diverse set of incomes allows you to really have that FU money that maybe your job says, hey, we need you to move to Pittsburgh in order to do something, or I need you to come in every Saturday for the next 6 months. And you just, if you have that extra money on the sideline, that money that drives you to FI, something that these side hustles can help you do. When your job comes to you saying you need this, or we need you to do this, you have the power to say, no, I'm not going to, because I'm in a position of power, because I pursued financial independence. I have my emergency fund. I have some investments. I have a side hustle that is bringing in additional income. Maybe it's not enough to supplement my life entirely, but it can get me through a season of finding another job.
Absolutely.
Without even having to go into the emergency fund, without having to go into those 6 months, because I have some extra money coming in, something that I worked on the side.
And there's a possibility that it's like, well, since, you only do your side hustle on the weekends, right? 2 days a week, right? Well, now I have all this extra time. Yeah. Maybe I can expand. Maybe I can bring on people. Maybe I can go to untapped markets that I wasn't able to because I was busy doing the job, right? So it's like, it's a nice little safety net almost. Yeah. And I like that aspect.
Yeah. I mean, it could honestly be like a blessing in disguise, right? Maybe you lose your job, but you have the side hustle, and that's what gives you the permission or the ability to go all in on that side hustle that you've always been thinking, maybe it could work if I gave more time, but I just can't quit this job. Well, sometimes situations come up that while you may not have wanted it, it is a blessing in disguise and allows you to really pursue your passion and do something that maybe you're going to love even more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because one of the hardest things to do in the corporate world in America is to leave something that is stable for something that is unstable. Chris, firsthand, when you left a job that was just killing you, right? Toxic work environment. It just wasn't ideal. Poor hours, no time for Chris, right? Yep. Then you started your own business. And really it was a side hustle, right? Would you consider?
I kind of burned the boats there.
Burn the boats. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't recommend what I did, but when you're an investment advisor, your license can only be held at one place. So I couldn't hold a license with my W-2 job and hold my own side thing. There's non-competes. So yeah, I kind of had to burn the boats, but luckily you do not have to, and just leading into one side hustle, because last podcast, we also talked about how you come from a family of entrepreneurs.
Yes, sir.
Of people that have done this, and you've been able to see that this is something possible for me. And by me, I mean you.
Yeah.
But for me, I didn't come from that. Like, I come from a family of immigrants who, believe that the best way to work is to go and find a good job, work for 30 years, hopefully get a pension or some sort of retirement system. Never save money, just spend it and never really learn about it, and just kind of hope.
Yeah.
And we've talked so many times that hope isn't a strategy. And that was a lot that I had to overcome in my mind, of saying, should I forego the safe amount of money, the good amount of money that I was making that wasn't lighting me up, in order to go for something that was, looking back and even looking forward, extremely risky.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But, you're remembered for the risk that you take. not for the safety that you stay in.
Yeah.
You know, everybody makes safe decisions every day, right? And I'm not advocating for risky moves. I'm not advocating to go to the casino, put it all on red. You know, I'm not advocating for that. But I think there's a time for calculated risk and there's a time for safety. You know, and I think when the calculated risk presents itself, you can't be afraid. And we talked a lot about fear in the last podcast. And part of the reason why most people don't start side hustles, because it's very easy to start. The barrier to entry couldn't be easier, right? It's fear. It could be fear of failure. It could be fear of losing money. It could be fear of being a social outcast. Like, what will my friends think if they see my store on Instagram and gee golly, I'm going to be outcasted? It's like, no, probably not. And what kind of friends would outcast you for trying to better your life, right?
Yeah. You know, one thing I think about is when you think of that fear, it's fear in the short term, right?
Yes.
What really got me to want to do this was fear of the long term, fear of looking back on my life on my deathbed and saying, I left so much on the table that I could have gone for had maybe I started my company. It's the fear of, you know, it really is FOMO there, and me thinking, what could have been had I gone ahead and just sent it and went ahead and started my own company rather than working the normal 9-to-5 job for 50 years, you know, doing whatever. Could that have been better? I don't know. I mean, once you stick to a path that you're going to go with, move forward, full speed ahead with your eyes looking forward. Don't look back to the past saying what could have been had I switched things up, because we don't know. We only know the way that history does unfold, not the way it could unfold. So looking back constantly saying, if I made a better decision, I could be in a better place. It doesn't matter. Just move forward with what you have.
Absolutely. So getting on to exploring side hustle ideas, we talked a little bit about finding what you're good at and finding something that you're passionate about. Maybe it's you love dogs, right? If you love dogs, you know, I'm going to start a dog walking business in my little neighborhood, right? I'll make some flyers, go put them on the doors, put them in the mailboxes, whatever. And that's your niche. That's your in, right? Versus like, you know, me, I love dogs, but I hate picking up dog poop. Like starting a dog pickup poop business for me, I hate that. I'd throw up. I'd be like, wow, all over the place. Well, it's not for me. Not for me. I didn't like doing it when I had a dog, right?
Yeah.
So what would I do with other people's dogs? So that would be a no-go for me, right? So you got to find something that inspires you, that kind of draws to you. And, you know, one of the methods we talked about over the 3 methods we talked about. There's the intersect method.
Yeah, there's the intersect method, the intersection method. There's the find friction everyday method, and then there's the rip, pivot, and jam method.
Yeah. So let's get into those.
Yeah. So the intersection method is we're going to identify the skills that we have, the desires that we have, and then the network of people that we have around us, so we can find a side hustle that intersects with all these 3 ideas. You know, I think the most important thing that when we're finding a side hustle is we're trying to find something that aligns with our interests and our talents. Yes. You know, if you're someone saying like, oh, my side hustle idea is going to be, I want to be a podcaster as a side hustle, but you are terrified of public speaking. Like that might not be the right one for you. Yeah. You know, or there's just so many different ways of looking at that. Same with your thing. I want to be a dog walker, but I'm afraid of dogs.
Yeah. It's not going to work. Know? That might be a bit of an issue. You know,
a
barrier to entry.
Yeah. Because with the side hustle, unlike your job, it's not required. So if it's something that's hard to do, something that you already don't want to do, if it's not required for you to live, you're never going to do it. You're going to constantly look for ways to avoid making that problem. So find something that you enjoy doing, that you would do without the money, and then see how can I turn that into a side hustle. I'm not saying that you would go and pick up poop without the money, but saying I do like dogs, I like walking dogs, and that's a portion of it. Or saying like, I'm willing to forego a little bit of fun, like maybe picking up poop isn't your end all be all, because obviously it shouldn't be, but it's something I can do, and it's something that doesn't hurt my ego or anything like that, and it brings in extra money. Like that's the win-win-win. Just go for it.
Bingo. Yeah, I love that. I love all 3 of the methods. Personally,
that was the first method. We have to still talk about the other 2.
Yeah, but so that's the one I probably associate most with. But the second one, the, find friction in everyday life, identifying a common problem, thinking and brainstorming a solution, and presenting that solution as a product or service to the community, right? Solving a problem, the basic necessity, the basic reason for a business, solving a problem,
Yep.
That one's very, very, very common on the larger scale and common scale, I guess, as well. So what do you think? Do you think that one's more viable than the first one?
I mean, when it comes to viability, I think they're all going to work. It all depends on you and what you're willing to go into. These are just different methods to finding an idea that you can work with. Because so many people, there's so many different side hustles ideas that many people have, but none of those side hustle ideas mean anything if there's no execution, if you never actually go out and start that side hustle. But before we start a side hustle, obviously we want to make sure that we have something that is sustainable, something that we can actually continue to do.
Yeah.
So that's where these three methods come in.
Absolutely. And the third method?
And the third method is my favorite method personally, which is the rip, pivot, and jam. So all you're going to do is you're basically going to rip off a new business. That's where the rip comes. So you're going to adapt a successful business concept and then apply it to a new market and then put your unique spin on it and to its own idea.
Yeah. So it's not like, buying refurbished Apple computers, slapping a Pear logo on it and reselling it. It's not like that, right?
No, you'll probably go to jail for that.
You'll probably go to jail for that one. Yeah.
No, but I mean, it could be something as simple as, maybe you, let's see here, Birchbox?
Yes.
Yeah. So Birchbox, so you go ahead and they'll send you different things depending on, like, I think it's makeup. Birchbox, I think, is makeup. So they'll send you different makeups based off of you. Well, maybe you're a guy and you're like, well, I'm kind of outdoorsy. Can I make a subscription service where people will send me money and I'll send them a box of like outdoorsy stuff? Maybe it has like a pocket knife and like a Yeti and something else. You're basically taking that exact model of Birchbox of sending the subscription box service, and then you're adapting it to a new niche. Something that you're actually interested in doing. Therefore, you're going out there, you're testing, what ropes work best in these situations, what pocket knife works best. I can send this to my subscribers of my box.
Absolutely. Like Butcher Block, or not Butcher Block, Butcher Box. Have you ever heard of that one?
Butcher Box. No, I've heard of Bark Box.
Cool. That's the one. Honestly, that's, me. I'm not big on subscriptions. I don't like to get those fixed incomes or those fixed expenses. They start hitting the balance sheet. I'm like, I don't really need it. But this one is actually interesting. This is one where they send you meat, right? All types of meat, whatever meat you want.
Yes, I have.
Yeah. Isn't that just the coolest thing? And it's like fresh cut. Like it's no like store-bought stuff. It's like all grade A cuts and like the best stuff. I'm telling you, if I was going to get any subscription, that might be the one. That might be the one.
I mean, you could take that idea, like say you're a baker, maybe you like to make fresh bread. You could do that and make it like a fresh bread type thing. I mean, there are so many endless ideas. And the nice thing nowadays is before you would have to go out there and like here he, and like put up signs and billboards and all this stuff. Like, hey, I'm doing this thing, so buy it from me. But now with the advent of social media, you can actually just go on and create a post and see, does this idea have legs before I go and invest all this time, money, effort into these things? If I put out just a fake ad, I can spend $10 for a Facebook ad and say, hey, would people be interested in this? You can test an idea before having going all the way in on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. One of the ideas that I thought was one of the more interesting ones, and one of the newer ones that I thought was, I actually considered testing. I considered testing this idea for my side hustle, is people go on Facebook Marketplace, right? And they will sell something very unique, like a Japanese loaf of bread, right?
Okay.
Or something really specific in like that, where it's like, or a Japanese cheesecake, right? It's like, well, I can't necessarily buy that at the store, right? Yeah. I don't know how to make it, but this one person is selling it, and they have the 100% market in my area on Facebook Marketplace, and they would deliver it. And they'd make it. It was like $20, like good price. And it's like, that's genius. I'm like, what if I did that with like something I'm good at? Like, what if I did that with like, donuts or see, donuts would be bad because there's a lot of competition in donuts, right? Why would someone buy that? So it would have to be something super unique that you can't buy in a store. But that's another example of like the rip and pivot, like, classic Irish, sourdough bread or whatever, something like that, made in a sourdough bread oven or something unique like that.
Yeah. And it doesn't even have to be unique. It can just be something that is special, something that people find value in. Like, for me, I think, I'm Mexican. I'm also Hawaiian, so I make pretty like mean spam musubi.
What is that? What is that word? Spamusubi.
Oh.
Never heard of that.
You never heard of spam musubi? I'll make you some.
That's a cool word. What is that? Tell me about
It's
that.
spam, rice, and then nori, which is just seaweed around it, and you put some like seasonings on there.
Whoa, it's wild.
Yes, I make a pretty mean one, but I also make a pretty mean salsa. Whenever someone tries them, they're always saying like, man, you should sell this stuff. So that's an interesting idea that if there's something that you make, you can honestly go on Facebook Marketplace, where in the past you would have to go through all these like health regulators to get it put into a store and all these things. Yeah. Nowadays, you can honestly just go online and find people that in your market who are around you that, are there other salsas that you can go to? Yeah. Are there other spam musubi places you can go to? I mean, there's a few. You can go like to L&L's or whatever, one of those places. Yeah. But to get like authentic Hawaiian made food or like good salsas, pace can only get you so far.
Pace can only get you so far. That's true. That's so true. That's cool. This is why I love the Friday pods, because I get to hear more about like your life, and I get to tell more about my life. It's more unstructured. It's more natural. I love that.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, just talking right here, I just came up with 2 new business ideas.
Bing, bang, boom. Just like
different things that we can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the crazy thing is, from there, I think a lot of people, they have so many business ideas, but they never actually execute on them. Right. And overcoming those side hustle challenges, that's what I want to get into next. Cause I know you and I, especially you've done more side hustles than I have. So I just like to hear some of the things that you've had to overcome, some of the fears, the failures, the time constraints, some personal stories that you've gone through. And then I can share some of mine with you as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't want to scare anybody, right? I don't want to.
I think we did that. I think we successfully did that on Monday's pod.
Monday's pod was a lot of fear mongering, a little bit, but all honest stuff, right? Sometimes when starting a business and you don't have any experience, it's probably a good idea to get comfortable with losing, right? Get comfortable with not getting punched in the face, but not winning so much. A lot of the times you'll see on social media, you'll see businesses and whatnot, like, oh, Jeff Bezos started his company. That was his first company or whatever. And it's like, it's worth, billions and billions, maybe $1 trillion by now. It's like, well, yeah, but that's a terrible example. Don't compare yourself to Jeff Bezos, Yeah. That's not the move, right? And for me, while I was surrounded by entrepreneurs, I had to make my own mistakes, right? Yeah. So when building my first website, that took way too long, right? It's using the wrong software, right? Nowadays I use Shopify. I can get it done in like a couple days, right? Nice. And it looks beautiful. I could probably speed run it in an hour, maybe in a day. I don't know. But you have to go through the trials to understand the lessons. And that's one thing that's more prevalent on the other side of the rainbow that you recognize is the only way to learn a lesson is to learn the lesson. You can have it told to you. Sometimes you got to experience it for yourself. You got to run it, and you got to run it well. And if you don't, well, you're going to see what that feels like. And that's okay. That's okay. We all have hard times when starting a business. We all have challenges we got to overcome, an endless to-do list, but you got to knock them off, one task at a time. And
yeah. I think one of the hardest things that for me when I started my businesses was seeing how much had to get done. Yes. And then in my mind, it was not, I can get this done with time. For me, like having tasks, I do not like having tasks. I'm very much like, if you give me tasks, I will take every single one of them out because I love seeing like a zero inbox. I love seeing 0 tasks. But for me, it was coming to the realization and being okay with not being okay and just saying like, it's okay that it's not all done. Everything's going to be fine. I still have tomorrow. When you start a side hustle, it is not I need to go from day one to Jeff Bezos. Yes. Immediately. Agreed. It's okay that it takes time. And it's good. It will take time because I think the worst thing that can happen is that you start something, you find immediate success. And this is what I see with a lot of younger people who like do day trading and stuff like that is they get in once, they find some immediate success due to no fault of their own. Like honestly, they just
it wasn't good due diligence or anything.
It wasn't good due diligence. And now they think they're a freaking genius.
Now and that's
going
Wall Street.
Yeah, I think they're Wolf of Wall Street, and that ends up running them to the ground later. But that's one of the nice things about side hustles is that you go through it, you go through the grind, and you fail, you reiterate, you fail. And that way, when you do succeed, you are someone who is worthy of succeeding.
Yes, that's so true.
Yeah. And that money, all the stuff that you get, you hold on to it because you know the value and you know the time, the effort, the shit you had to go through in order to get there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you said it perfectly. You said it perfectly. You know, one thing about failure, sometimes, you know, the first business might not be a success. Second business might not be, the 10th business might not be a success, but hopefully if you're doing things correctly, every time you fail, quote unquote, fail, you learn from it, right?
Yeah.
There is no failure. It's only a teachable moment, right?
Yeah. And I think people need to disconnect the thought that I have failed at something with I am a failure.
Correct. There's two different things.
Yep.
Two different things.
When you lose, you lose. But when you win, you win. But when you lose, you learn.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
You're just constantly reiterating yourself. And, you know, I first, before we move on to the next subject, I'll talk a little bit about starting my company, Monzon Wealth.
Yeah.
And I told you last time that one of my superpowers in running companies or in like being in business was that I didn't care. Like that was kind of like my superpower. Like, oh, things are going wrong. It's cool. I don't care. We'll figure it out.
It is what it is. Yeah.
It is what it is. Like, it wasn't like a DGAF. Like I really don't care, but it's just like, it's okay. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Where when I started Monzon Wealth, that thought of it's okay, it'll come back or I'll be able to figure it out, that kind of went away. And my anxiety started shooting up because for the first time in my life, I was concerned. I did genuinely care. You know, if I messed up, you know, my clients weren't coming to somebody else. It wasn't, I can't blame it on anyone else. It was me, extreme ownership. It was all on me. So for that time, like for the first time in my life, I experienced like severe anxiety.
Really?
Severe anxiety that eventually like led into like maybe a low level like depression, melancholy, you might want to call it. That was like really, really tough to go through. But now, due to these side hustles and going through these things, when someone tells me like, oh, I'm kind of feeling depressed or I'm going through anxiety, now I have the ability to understand and empathize with them and understand like, oh, that's what you're going through. Because for so long when someone would say like, oh, I'm depressed or I'm stuck in bed, I don't know how to get out and I don't know where to start, I'd be like, well, just get up and figure it out. Like,
just go to the gym.
Just do something.
Yeah.
And now that I've gone through that experience myself where I was stuck in bed, like trying to figure it out. Now, when someone tells me that, I'm like, okay, I know what that's like. And I can tell you that you're going to make it through it. And I can be there for them and empathize with them in a level that I never could before. Yeah. So it's made me a better person and a better like financial advisor. All these things and like running the business has made me better at running businesses because now I know what it's like.
Absolutely. And you can read about that kind of knowledge. Like you can hear what Chris is saying, understand it, process it, give the advice to someone else. But it's different when you walk a mile in Chris's shoes, right? It's so much different. And we can sit up here for 10 hours talking about side hustles, talking about, you know, the fear is all in the mind, that, you know, you're going to experience failure, that, you know, problems happen, use it as a learning event, you know, talk to people who have done it, mentors, all this stuff. But it's like, you got to do it. So just stop trying to gather more knowledge. Just do. I feel like a lot of time in the self-improvement space, it's like, oh, wow, I'm listening to this podcast. This is my favorite. Jocko's podcast is on. Goggins' podcast is on. You know, Chris Williams, all these podcasts. I'm like, oh, such great information. It's like, Dom, have you shut off everything for a while? Are you using, you go to the gym, I go to the gym, right? Did you disconnect today? Did you use your brain today, right? Did you have a problem, and rather than searching it up, did you think about how you can solve it? Right? It's important to do. It's important to not be in the analysis paralysis and I'm worried, I'm scared that I don't know what's going to come if I do this. Well, it's like, well, you got to do it to see what's going to happen, you know?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I struggled with too when starting my dropshipping business was, like I talked about on Monday, I had a huge course, a great course talking about how to pick a product, how to pick a niche, how to pick run ads, how to reach out to influencers, stuff like that, and all these different things. I'm like, great information, took lots of notes, but I'm gonna be honest, I didn't finish the course, and yet I still started, and that took a lot for me because it would be like I would tell my friend about it, like, wow, I found this course, I'm starting it, right? First month, right? How is it? Have you sold anything? Well, I'm still in the course.
Yeah.
Second month,
I have
still
to
in the
get
course.
past like course 12 in order to finish, to start.
Yeah. It's like, that was never a barrier to entry. That's a personal barrier to entry. And you're using it as a safety net, but in actuality, you're using it as a crutch because you're really scared. And then, you ask yourself, it's like, well, Dom, what are you scared about? It's like, I don't know. Of the unknown. And it's like, doesn't even have a face. Like, nope. Just scared of the unknown. And like you said, I think it was last podcast, or it might have been off the pod, but if you run at fear, fear runs away. Right? So you got to charge that thing, because it's not as scary as you think.
Yeah.
It's not as scary as, and if you're scared and you're nervous and you don't know what you're doing, you're in the right place.
Yep. Because that's where growth comes in, right?
Yes.
When you're in your comfort zone, you're not growing anymore. You're stagnant. You're doing great, and that's fine. But I think the point of being alive is to grow as much as you possibly can and to reach whatever your potential whatever your like human potential is.
Yes.
And we don't do that by lounging around on a couch. You talked a little bit about, like, I really love the analogy between finance and fitness. Like, they make so much sense to me. It just all makes sense. And you were saying, like, in order to get in better shape, you need to start. You need to go to the gym. You need to start doing something. Go for a walk around the block. Go for a jog. Do some air squats. But if you're sitting there and you're saying, like, in order for me to go to the gym, I first need to understand how every single machine works. I need to figure out, like, what is this abductor thing? How is it working? Am I using the right form? And don't get me wrong, like, form is important. All these things are important. But what's more important is getting started. You're never going to find the perfect, you can't, like, reason your way or learn your way into how to do a perfect ass to grass squat. You need to get out there and, like, test it, see what you're doing wrong, and then reiterate and say, like, okay, my ankles aren't flexible enough. Let's add some more flexion in there. Like, my back is rounding. I need to do stuff. And you start to work on it from there. But if you never actually do the squat, you're never going to know.
Yeah.
What is that you need to work on in order to grow?
Absolutely. The knowledge is in the doing. There's certain things you just can't extract from books and from podcasts and from videos. Like if I grew up rough, I can't tell you it's like, oh, I had a rough childhood. Those are just words. Like, a person experienced that, right? Like Goggins says in his books, he's like, you can't Google the stuff I've lived through. You can Google how to fix a tire, but you can't Google what it's like to XYZ, You gotta do it. And if you're gonna take anything away from this pod, literally just anything, it's that don't let your fears control your world. It's amazing how much you can accomplish when you don't let fears control you. Show no fear. Just show no fear. And just put your head down and just do it. Just do it. Because on the other end, the fear is not that scary. I mean, growing up, oh, go talk to that girl. Oh, I'm scared. It's like, go talk to her, and it's like, oh wow, she's a human being.
Yep.
She's not a goddess. It's like, no kidding. Just do it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, they overestimate what they can get done in a year, but they severely underestimate what they can get done in 10 years.
Yeah.
And with that being said, is that it's okay that things take time. It's okay. Like, just keep on reiterating. Just because you tried once and it didn't work, that's okay. Most successful business people go through, I think, 16 different businesses before they find the right one.
Yeah.
Before they find their $1 million idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what makes you so unique, so special, that you think that I deserve to hit it out of the park with my first try? What makes you so special?
Yeah, it's like, you'd kind of be doing yourself a disservice if you did get it on the first try, because it's like, you're not experiencing the full emotion of the business game, I don't know. it'd be nice to get it on the first try, but at the same time, it's when you want to move to the next opportunity, it's like, are you going to be ready? I don't know. I don't know. Every game is different.
Yeah. And then, I say move on to like building, scaling your side hustle.
Yeah, scaling.
One thing we didn't talk about on Monday, which we really should have, I think it's the most important thing is, once we set up the time that we're going to work, we make sure that we're focusing on ourselves first. Is we never talked about setting up a process. And I think that's the most important thing for when you're starting a side hustle is that you have a repeatable process or a repeatable place. Like for me, my side hustle right here, this is the battle station. Like everything gets done from these four corners of my office. And I'm very lucky. I'm very blessed in that I have a dedicated space and different sections in this space to be able to say, like, when I'm over there, that's what this is. And over here, that's what this is. But if you don't like create a place in life where you're saying, like, this is where I'm going to work. And when I work, these are the things I'm going to do. Every day that I get home, I'm going to, tell my wife I love her, do all these things. I'm going to spend 30 minutes, just 30 minutes working on the company. Yeah. That's going to go so much farther than saying, like, I'll just kind of work on it when I work on it, or it'll work out itself. You need to have a repeatable process that you can write down, these are the steps of what I'm going to do to get there.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you fall back on your systems, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the
you
quote?
You fall to the level of your systems.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. That's so true. Yeah. So talking a little bit more about scaling, if you get to that stage where you need to scale, the best way to scale, we talked about, is to delegate, right?
Yeah.
To outsource, to clone yourself, basically. Make yourself, you have a good business when you can take yourself out of the business and the business still grows.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the biggest things I've always learned is when you're running a business, you need to work on the business, not in the business.
Correct.
And so many people, they confuse being busy. They confuse having so many tasks with being productive. What is the one thing you ask yourself? What's the one thing that only I can do?
Yeah.
Do that.
Yep.
If it's something that you can do, but other people can do as well, get rid of it. Get rid of it. There's only so many, like for me in my business, there's only so many things that I can do. Only I can meet with my clients.
Yeah. Yeah.
Only, and like when it comes to like learning, because all I do, like my whole life is just trying to learn. The only person that can learn is me.
Yep.
So I have to do that. That's my work every day, but I don't constitute it as work. I mean, 8 hours a day of my life is listening to podcasts, reading audiobooks, going to jujitsu, learning like life's lessons, cold punching, doing terrible things, like learning life's lessons so that I can take that to our audience. So I can take that to my clients when I do like financial coaching and stuff. So when they say like, oh, this is what I'm going through, I can say like, okay, I've been there too.
Yeah.
And here's some life experience.
Yeah. Heck yeah. Yeah. I love that. I think that's brilliant. I think that's brilliant. And you talk about like, 8 hours of your day is doing things that you don't like to do, but for you, you love it.
Yeah. Again, it's 8 hours of what I subject myself to, but I'm at 80% of my day is things I love to do. So that 20% of the day is things that I don't want to do. And so many people have that flipped. Mm-hmm. And if you're running a business and you're still trying to like figure out, oh, how do I run QuickBooks? How do I do editing? How do I do all these other things? Mm-hmm. Can you outsource that stuff? Because other people can do it better than you.
Yeah.
100%.
Yep.
Now, is there a season when you're starting the company that you're going to have to bootstrap it? You have to figure it out by yourself? 100%. Of course. When you get to that level, you need to be willing to let go and, decentralize everything and let other people take the ball and run with it. Because just like you said, you need to be able to clone yourself.
Yeah. It's so true. And when you do end up cloning yourself, you can kind of get back to balancing, work and life. It's not all side hustles, right?
No.
You still want to hang out with your wife. I want to hang out with my friends. I want to do other things. I'd like to go on maybe a walk every now and again. I want to go on vacation. So how do you find is the best way to, balance work and life, especially when it comes to a side hustle?
Again, I think when it comes down to that is just finding out what's the most important thing to you, and start really with the end in mind. And then from there, like you've seen my calendar has really very
yeah.
sparse.
Yeah.
It's very, very sparse in terms of like how busy it is. But I know every day before I go to bed, I sit down and I write out what tasks are most important for me to get done tomorrow. If I got these 6 tasks done, then I know that I had a successful day. And then every morning I'll wake up and I prioritize and execute those tasks.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't mean that I need to get all those tasks done in a certain amount of time. And shoot, there are some days that I can't complete all the tasks, and that's okay. That means it just moves on to the next day. But I know every single day, these are the things I need to get done in no specific order, no specific timeline. But now that I know that this is what I need to do, it prompts me that I'm trying to figure out how can I get these things done so I can move on to the rest of my day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, and it's kind of funny for me. I have a bit of an addictive personality, right? And thankfully I don't drink, I don't do any drugs or anything like that. But when it comes to like the gym or content or stuff like that, and my side hustle, I get excited to it. It draws to me, it calls to me. And we talked about how picking a side hustle that calls to you, that you enjoy. Oh my God. It's the difference between having a chance at success and having 0 chance at success.
Mm-hmm.
My passion is not picking a dog, right? That doesn't call to me, right? But the business I am working on, I'm so excited. I'm literally right after this podcast is over, I'm hopping on the computer and that's what I'm doing. Like I'm working on the website, I'm adding reviews to the products, I'm getting everything ready for the launch, and like I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
Like you see the smile on my face, and it's because it calls to me. It's because I love to do it. I enjoy it. So if you haven't found what you loved yet, keep searching.
Yeah.
Keep searching.
Keep searching. Keep on going into life and figuring out what is the thing that you would do even if someone didn't pay you. Like think about our podcast right now. When I listen to other podcasts, when I'm going around trying to figure out like what should we talk about, there's so many things that my brain's constantly working on. Oh, we can talk about this on the podcast, and we can do this, and we can do this. And it's really like, how can I try to help other people so that they don't have to go through the same struggles that I had to go through? How can I save them so that they don't have to deal with the same shit?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you know, just to kind of wrap it up a little bit, talking about burnout, I know on Monday you had some really great points on burnout. Would you want to speak on that?
Like, what do you mean by like avoiding burnout?
Avoiding burnout. Yeah. Because a lot of the times people jump into something new and it dies out so fast, and they work on it. No success. And then it's like, I think I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm just burnt out.
Yeah. I think a lot of it comes down to making sure that you take care of yourself first. I think so many people, when they start a side hustle, they get so excited that like, oh, I have to make this thing launch and it's going to be amazing. And they put all their time, all their dedication, but they forego time with their family, time taking care of themselves, going to the gym, walking the dogs, doing whatever it is. And that's what really leads to burnout. Might there be a point in life that you're going to be like, I don't want to do this anymore? Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Maybe that time might come. But if you're focusing more importantly on the things that do light you up, and then the side hustle is something that you enjoy doing, burnout really won't be a thing because you're doing what you love to do. And I think another way to avoid burnout is compare yourself to who you were, not to somebody else. Try to get 1% better every single day. When you focus on that, you're seeing this constant success wheel. But when you start putting yourself, like if you want to do YouTube or something like that, and you put up all these analytics and you're looking at the analytics, you're like, man, I really suck. I'm not doing as well as Mr. Beast is or anything else. But are you doing better than you were yesterday? Yeah. Because even Mr. Beast, who is like one of the biggest prolific YouTubers, I think he spent a decade just studying the algorithm and like trying to figure it out before he started posting videos, and they were probably god awful. And then they got better and better and better. And so many people, they will overestimate what they can do in a year, but they will underestimate what they can do in 10 years. You have time to do this, but you have to focus on yourself and making sure that you are healthy and doing what you love, and just compare yourself to you.
Absolutely.
Only you.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. What was our action step for today? For today's Friday pod?
Well, it was on Monday, so hopefully you already figured it out. But if not, you have the weekend to go ahead and use one of the methods that we discussed, either the rip, pivot, and jam, the intersection method, or the finding the problem solving one. Yeah, problem solving.
The friction method.
Yeah, the friction method.
Yeah.
use one of those to find a side hustle idea that you can start with and then get it started. Do something. Try to bring in some additional income. Even if it doesn't bring in $1 million in the first year, even if it only brings in $100 in a year, that's $100 you can go to dinner with.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Like, you did that. That's pretty cool.
And more importantly than that, outside of the money, it's the personal growth that you get from being an entrepreneur that I think is so much more valuable. When I tell people, when someone asks like, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I'm a podcaster and I run my own company. There's so many people like, wow, that's really, really cool. Tell me what you do. Like, just tell me more. How did you do it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, don't ask for $1 million, but ask to be the type of person that is worth $1 million for what it will make of you.
Yep.
And I love that. That's kind of my my mantra for the month is for what it will make of you. And I love that.
Good.
With that being said, any last final thoughts before we move on?
No, I said we get on to viewer mailbag.
Viewer mailbag. It's that time of the week. We need a theme song for that. I don't know. I think that's the dating game.
Sure.
Yeah. If you know that show from the way back when. But yeah, today's 5 Friday feedback viewer mailbag. When is life insurance a good idea? That's what we're talking about today on viewer mailbag. So with that being said, let me get into the letter. Howdy, Fi guys. I hope you can help me. I've got something on my mind that I could use your advice on, typically.
Yeah.
So after my father-in-law passed away unexpectedly in April, we found ourselves in a bit of a tough spot financially. Turns out he didn't have any life insurance, and the funeral costs nearly landed us in some trouble with our savings, right? Luckily, his mom stepped in. His mom. His actual mom. Interesting. Luckily, his mom stepped in and covered it. But it got us thinking. My mother-in-law, bless her heart. Oh, I see. I think that might have been a typo. His wife.
I think that's right. His mom. Like, so the father-in-law can still have a mom.
I guess
she might be older.
I guess for me, I was born really late. Like my parents had me when they were like 45. So it's like I'm like grandparents. That's crazy. What a concept. Mother-in-laws, father-in-laws. I don't know. That's just threw me off for a sec. So getting back to the story, my mother-in-law, bless her heart, doesn't have any life insurance either. And with her health being a bit of concern, we're worried about what might happen down the road. She's really not one to talk about this kind of stuff since losing her husband. So we're wondering if it's something that we should look into without necessarily bringing it up with her. You know, we've been trying to figure it out how life insurance works and if something we should consider getting for her. You know, it's not like we're looking for a big payout or anything. It's just something to cover the funeral costs when that time comes. Do you have any advice on life insurance and if it's a good idea for us? Thanks for lending an ear. From the peace of mind a policy will find to leave no loved one's fate behind. I love that. That's cute. What do you got for us, Chris?
Yeah. So it sounds like the big question is, should I get life insurance for my mom, for my mother-in-law? And then can I get life insurance without telling her that I'm getting her life insurance?
That sounds like a bit of a scam or something. It sounds fishy, no?
So in order to have life insurance on somebody, you have to have insurable interest.
Okay.
So
what is that?
It means that like I can't take out a life insurance policy on like Kim Kardashian because I have no insurable interest. Like I'm not dependent on her income in any way, shape, or form.
Gotcha. Okay.
You know, but since they are a family member to you, I don't think that you can still take it out without her knowledge.
Okay.
Because she is in no way financially, you are in no way financially dependent on your mother-in-law.
No.
And like her death isn't going to bring you money or even really lose you money in any way, shape, or form. So she would have to know about the life insurance policy. So I don't think there's any way around that you can just sign up for a life insurance policy without her knowing. And the other thing with a life insurance policy, I'm going to assume that she's older because she's your mother-in-law. She will likely have to go through a medical exam. So I don't know how you're going to trick her into getting a medical exam for life insurance without her knowing about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so that kind of makes me think like, why are you so afraid to talk to your mother-in-law about this?
Yeah.
I definitely understand that it is a scary topic to bring up with your loved ones. Like talking about life insurance, talking about these things is not fun, especially talking with your parents about it. Because
Yeah.
I think a lot of parents, they shudder at the idea of talking about money with their kids.
Yeah.
Because in their minds, like they're the ones who are supposed to be in control of money, and their kids bring up concerns about money to you. You're supposed to be the one who has it all figured out.
Yeah.
And maybe it's going to show them that like, oh, mom and dad don't have this figured out. So a way that I like to do that would be bring it up to her in the form of a question. Hey mom, I've been thinking about, and that could be an easy one to be like, hey mom, I've been thinking about getting life insurance for myself. Because I really want to make sure that when I pass away, that my husband isn't like burdened with a bunch of debt or anything like that. Do you know anything about that? Or what do you have in place for yourself?
Yeah.
Therefore, you're not like trying to come at them and attack them like, hey, what do you have for life insurance? I don't want to make sure you're a burden on me.
Yeah.
You're trying to be, you're trying to ask them, you're trying to come to them with a problem. And hopefully you'll see if they have anything. You kind of go with the way they respond. You know, if it's something like, oh, this is what I'm doing, great. Now at least you know the information. Or it's, I don't know, I've never thought about that. Now you're going to ask, oh, can we figure this out together? Because I think it might be something important for both you and myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the idea of having like a nurse come to the house and be like, so what's your blood pressure? Be like, okay, what's going on here? What's this for? It's like, I don't even worry about it. I think that's solid advice though. You know, talking about money from a parent standpoint can be very stressful. And then you compound that on the fact that, hey, guess what? I don't mean to burden you with this information, but you're not going to live forever. So kind of got to prepare for when I bury you. Talk about a tough subject. Yeah. Talk about a tough subject. Talking about your own mortality. That's got to be one of the tougher ones on the list.
Yeah, but if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So, I mean, it's really important that you talk about that kind of stuff. You know, I also think that this person who wrote in doesn't really have a full understanding as to like when life insurance is a good idea. So they asked me, is life insurance a good idea for my mom? Most likely, no. Most likely it isn't. The only time that I think that you want to get life insurance on someone in this situation, because right now they said that it seems like they're in financial hardship. Sometimes you might want to use life insurance if you're like buku wealthy and you have a bunch of money and you're trying to shelter from taxes. Like insurance can be very helpful, but for these people, that's not the situation. They said that, you know, paying for someone's funeral arrangements, which is what, $10,000 on average, was like put them into severe issue.
Yeah.
So they're not the kind of people that are trying to shelter their wealth from an estate tax.
No.
So whenever you want to get a term policy or a life insurance policy, it's typically if you have someone who's dependent on you. So the father-in-law likely should have had a life insurance policy because it seems like the mother-in-law doesn't have anything much left right now. But the mother-in-law has no one dependent on her. No one's dependent on her income. So why are you thinking about getting a life insurance policy when no one's dependent on the income? Something that I'd probably recommend is get a final expenses or a burial/funeral policy put on you, which you can usually get those between $10,000 and $15,000 of coverage. And those usually don't require a medical exam, but they will have some like questions and a brief history that you have to put on. So your mom does have to know about it, but it'll be substantially cheaper because with your mom, I'm not sure how old she is, but let's say she's 60 years old. Let's say she's 60 years old. Getting a life insurance policy for a 60-year-old, it's going to be really, really expensive, regardless if you go whole life or term, because the statistics of them dying within that term policy is substantially higher than, say, a 20-year-old.
Yeah. So I'm curious, at what point do you think a person should get final expenses? Or is that for everybody? Or like for me, right? 25. I don't want to pay for that my whole life. Like, how does that work? Are you up to date on that? Or is that something?
I don't think that final expenses is something really worth it to most people if you have assets. So it sounds like based off what this person said, she put in here, where she put it? She put something inside there about how she's concerned that when her mom passes away, that there's not going to be any money left. and that probably most of our money is probably going to go to bills or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, it probably makes sense. But for most people, especially people on the path of financial independence, you have extra money in bank accounts. You have those emergency funds. You have investments. You have all those things that will be a part of your estate. They'll be able to pass on to your next of kin that they'll be able to use for your final expenses and burials. So for you, I know that you have extra money. We've talked about it. You have investment accounts. Right now you have a beneficiary on there who I'm assuming is probably your mom or your dad. If you were to pass away, your parents would be able to take that extra money and be able to use it for your final expenses.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, I mean, final expenses, burial policies, I would say only are to be used for people in like financial dire straits who, if they were to pass away, they have nothing they're leaving to anyone else, with the exception of like maybe debt, which isn't going to transfer anyways. And then the people around them don't have money to do the burial.
Interesting. Okay.
But I think a lot of people, they think, oh, well, if I die, I just want my husband or I want somebody else to just get money, like as a payout that I died. I was like, oh, I'm sorry I died. Here's money.
Yeah. I love that. I love that, if I die. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I'm sorry that I died. Like, here's money. But you also have to remember that comes with a cost. That comes with money right now that you're having to spend to keep that policy in force. And imagine what you could do if you were to put that money and use it to put it into investments to actually grow your wealth. Then you might not need to have that final expenses, because you're going to be leaving them with a nest egg that they can use for your final expenses or for setting themselves up for something else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So, I hope that helps.
Yep.
I hope that helps.
I do. And, so for you, I don't think that life insurance is a good idea for our listener here based off what they said, but you should definitely look into final expenses or burial. And I've noticed a lot that people are very confused when it comes to life insurance policies.
Mm-hmm.
So I think next week what we'll do for the podcast, I'm going to bring on a special guest in order to talk all about different insurance policies, when we should start to think about them, how can we calculate how much money we should have on the insurance policy, for what term, all that kind of stuff. That way we can have a better understanding for our audience. I'm pretty good in this stuff, but sometimes it's better to have somebody else come in here and talk about that, because insurance is just a small portion of what I do. Let's bring somebody in who knows the ins and outs, the intricacies substantially more than I do.
Absolutely. No, I think that's brilliant. And best of luck from Arizona. And that's it for Five Friday Feedback Viewer Mailbag.
Yep, that's it. So want to get on to Win of the Week, our favorite time?
Let's get on to Win of the Week. I'm looking at our notes. 2 blanks. Do you have a win of the week?
Of course, and I hope you have a win of the week too. So figure it out.
I got my win of the week. I'm chilling.
You go first then.
Well, we're recording with Riverside. We're doing this little. My win of the week is I had to take a step back from all of the projects in the backyard. If you know the saga, with the grass and the building the structures and everything, I had to take a step back from that to focus on actually the side hustle and my main hustles and stuff like that. But I was at Sam's Club the other day. I saw that they had, my mom was recommending me this Miracle-Gro, like soil, right? And I bought the wrong soil initially. And she's like, this is what you should get. Because my mom has the most lush green garden in Arizona. I mean, it's beautiful. My garden's not there yet. So I picked up a bunch of soil. I got like 4 bags of soil, like 40 quarts each. So I got like a bunch of soil. So now I'm restarting, and I'm going to start planting my garden back there and really getting it up and running, plant some strawberries and different vegetables and whatnot. So that's my win of the week. So I've restarted my backyard projects, but yes. What is your win of the week, Chris?
My win of the week is that we have saved ourselves like over $5,000 in what we owed in taxes.
Nice.
This year. So taxes are extremely complicated, and I'm not the biggest fan of our tax system and how it works because it's too complex.
Yeah.
But for my wife, she also has an ungodly amount of student loans because she is a doctor and a veterinarian. So when you're trying to also factor in student loans into taxes, it makes things even more complex, because my wife is something called the repay program. And if this is something that our audience wants us to go into, and like how student loans and taxes all work, please let us know in the comments. I'd be happy to talk about this more. But for her and I, we typically would marry filing separately, because when we filed jointly, my income and her income would be subject towards how much money she is paying back to her student loans, because we're going for something called a forgiveness program. But this year we were able to figure out that if we did it jointly rather than individually, we were able to save ourselves money in taxes. So instead of owing the government an additional $7,000, we only owe them an additional $2,000. And then that's only going to increase our student loan payment by $3,000. So by doing it this way, which I know is way more complex than anyone wants to get into, we're actually able to save ourselves more money by paying more towards the student loans by saving money in taxes.
Nice. Hey,
Yep.
I like that. I love a good tax hack. I love that.
Yep. So that's all part of like advanced financial planning and stuff like that. That's what I do for my clients to help them out. So I know a lot of people, what they do is they just kind of go in a TurboTax and they put in whatever it is and they hope for the best. But you really can't control your tax rate. And that's when working with a qualified CPA and a financial advisor can really help you. So if that's something that interests you, please reach out to me, Chris at Mons on Wealth. Even if you're kind of concerned, like, I don't understand how my student loans work and all this stuff, reach out to me. I've done a very deep dive into all this stuff because of the situation that me and my wife are in when it comes to that. So I'm in it with you. I understand. That's why I'm so passionate about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, guys, with that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and give it a share if you're into all of that fun stuff. And the fee for the show, don't forget.
If you found value today, please tell a friend about the Fi Guys. And until next week, we hope you have a great weekend.
Later, guys. Peace.
This video podcast is sponsored by Mons on Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests, not the podcast sponsor.
It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monsonwealth.com.